Hi guys, welcome to this session on Microsoft Project. In this module, I want to look at how to create a project plan for a flood defense. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a summary task. So if I go into the Format tab, over on the right there, you've got Project Summary Task. If I just tick that, it'll drop it in there for me. And then I can overtype that with the title Flood Defense. Now I'm just going to quickly type in some tasks. Funds RX, so RX is short for received, so funds with an S, RX, and then we're going to put some tasks in. So first one is going to be map flood area. I'll put the times in later on. ID choke points, coming down under ID choke points. Design gates, build gates, and install gates, and that can be a set of tasks that go together. We'll come back and do that shortly. The last one can be test gates. So these are going to be gates that are going to allow water to flow through them, like sluice gates. After that, we're going to ID dredge area, ID dredge area. We're going to have to source a dredger. We're going to then dredge it. Next one, it's going to be ID bank improvements, and that's going to be source contractor, so we're going to outsource that. Source contractors, start banking, so get them to go and start that. Next one, ID bypass route, so that's going to be confer with land owners, source contractor, and then build. And then the last section is going to be audit works, and that will be dredge site, bank site, and bypass route. Last task, commission. That's it. So that's our tasks. So now we need to go and do all the durations. Just do a spell check on everything. That's okay. So funds received is going to be a milestone, so that's going to drive the whole project. So that's going to be a 0 duration. And you can see it changes it to a milestone marker on the right there. Map flood area, that's going to take 5 days. And then ID choke points is going to be a series of tasks. So these 4 things are going to be part of choke points. So that needs to be indented in. So on the task tab, indent, and they come in like so. Then I need to do the durations for this. So let's say 2 days to design, 4 days to build, 2 days to install, 1 day to test. Now the dredge area is the same thing, so these 2 need to be indented in, and source dredger, say 5 days, and then dredge river 10 days. Bank improvements, these 2, they're going to be indented in, and source contractor 2 days, start banking 10 days, bypass ID bypass route, these 2, So that's going to be 2 days confer and source contractors, 3 days, and then let's insert a task there. So this is how you insert a task. So I'm just going to right click on number 17, insert task. So I need to build, have a build process, build bypass, and let's say that's going to be 10 days as well. Next one is build gates. So I've got that in the wrong place, I think, so I can move that. So test gates, they've got build gates at the top, so that's one, that one can get deleted. So I'm just going to highlight that and press delete. Now we're on audit works. Yeah, that's going to take 2 days. Dredge site, in fact that's not going to take 2 days, these all need to be indented in. And dredge site is going to take 2 days to audit, 2 days and 2 days. That's telling me I can pull that down. And commission is going to be a milestone. So now we have a series of tasks and subtasks. And what you can do with tasks is you can embed information into these tasks. So for example, designing the gates, if I double click on that one, I want to put some notes in there, and if I call this specification, I can put the design specification, if I've already got that, in there by clicking this button and finding it on my computer. And I'm just gonna, I don't even know what that is, but Boots photo. You can link that, or you can just display it as an icon. I'll display it as an icon. Okay, and then he comes in there, and if you need another one, you go and get it again, a different document, something else to do with specification, and this time I will get a file that I know is a file. So get an Excel spreadsheet, charting will do, and again I'll display that as an icon. And this time I will link that, so that's a live document. So if you link it, it means if there are any changes in this Excel file, I will pick that up. It's just a pointer to it, and click OK to that. That should take a few seconds to come in, but eventually it drops in. And if I just open that one, there's the Excel file, and any changes I make will be reflected. So just close that and click OK to that one. And then that process can go on all these tasks. You don't have to list every single item in a project plan. You can just do that. You can just embed the notes. You can insert the note column if you wish to see what is in there. And you can see a little note symbol. It says the word specification, but you only get a little apostrophe because that's the embedded object. It doesn't actually tell you what it is. So it's important that you do give it a title. Now, after we've done that, I want to format this a little bit, so this tells me something other than what it's showing at the moment, which is not a lot. So I'm going to double click on the white area and go into where it says text. It's defaults on resource names, but I'm just going to type name there, which is task name. I click OK to that, and it gives me that information on the right hand side. I'm okay with this timeline, this time scale, weeks and days. But you can do, if I double click on that, if I change that to 3 tiers, for example, and put the top tier on weeks, yes, 1 count, yes, 1 count, and bottom tier, put that into weeks as well, you can do stuff like this. So top tier, I'll leave it on January. Middle tier, I will change that to be the week of the year. So it's got the week of the year there, look. And then the bottom tier, I'll put the week from the start of the project. So from the start, that one there. And then if I click OK, you can see it appearing on there. So we're in week 1 of the project. It's the 30th week of the year, and there's a month at the top. So you don't have to do that, but quite a lot of people like to see that sort of information in project. Now, to do the links, this is where we need to move this across a little bit to expose this area. So the links for this one is this. Map flood area is not going to happen until you receive the funds. So this is going to be what's called a 2SS, 2 start to start, and I'll just click away from that. Not 2SS, 1SS. Can't link to myself. You get a little line coming out of the milestone, and which is pushing this. So if you don't get the funds, or there's a delay, and that has to go forward, it just pushes this forward. So it's a good thing to have some sort of trigger. Project initiation document is quite common if you use Prince2 methodologies. That's what you would use. But whatever it is, an invoice received, payment received, funds received, that would be a milestone trigger, gate 0, whatever you call it as a company. That's the trigger, and then your first task links on like so. Now, we're mapping the flood area, so you've now got to design these gates, these choke points. So identify choke points, could be going on at the same time as that, so you might want to do a 1SS on that. 1SS would link it to that. Let's link it to this, so we'll follow it on. Just put a 2 in there, that'll just follow it on. So you're designing gates, you can't build them until you have designed them, and you can't install them until you've built them. So these are just follow-on links, and you can see how that sits at the top there. So they're all just following on. So source dredger can go on at the same time as map flood area. So I'm going to get this to go on a 1SS as well, 1SS, and that will be triggered by the start of the project, receiving funds. So receiving funds, you're going to map the flood area, you're going to source a dredger. This definitely has to follow on, so that's going to be a 9. Now this is going to be the same. ID bank improvements, this is going to be triggered by 1SS as well. Now the reason I can type 1SS, if I just double click on this one to show you, on the predecessors link tab, you've got the different types there. Look, FS, that's the default. SS is which is what I'm doing now. These two, FF and SF, come in maybe later on, and you might have some lead or lag time. Just cancel that for now. So start banking, your sources contract, start banking, so that's just going to be a follow-on, 12. And identify bypass route. So that's going to have to be after the map flood area. So that's task 2. So that's gone after that. And then just thinking about that, this one probably needs to be identify bank improvements. That's probably going to be task 2 as well, because you can't, I'm just changing my mind here, task 2. We can't do that until we've mapped it. So I'm just moving all them forward, which is okay. This is what you do. You've got to make this diagram on the right look like how it appears on the ground. So source contractors can go on at the same time as this. So I'm going to go 15 SS for that one. So that can go on at the same time. And build bypass was a follow-on, so it's just going to be a 16. Notice I'm not doing FS or anything like that. If it's just a straightforward follow-on, you don't need to qualify it. Where you would qualify it is if you had any lead or lag time. So that would then say 16 FS plus 1 day. If that was a, in fact, I'll do that for you. So I'll just double click into this. So in this one, it's going to be 1 day positive. I click OK, and you can see what it does. So it puts the FS on now, and then it's just a 1 day lag. So you're sourcing the contractors, then 1 day later you start building. So the audit works has to follow each of the subtasks. So Dredge River is going to follow that task, which is 10. Bank site is going to follow 13, and bypass route is going to follow 17. And commission will have to follow 19, 20, and 21. So that's how you do this: 19, 20, 21, and that follows all of that. Go back up to the top. So far this whole project is taking 22 days, which is quite impressive. You 1,000 people to do it. So now we've typed our list out, and you will probably tweak this list quite a lot. What I need to do is now allocate resources to these tasks so you can see who's doing what. Now you can type things straight into this list, but I think it's best or good practice to go onto the resource sheet down the bottom there and type your people in. Now you can use appointments or people's names. More functionality using people's names, so that's what I'm going to do. But I'm only going to use their first names. So I'm going to have Bob, Bill, Ben, and Anne, and I'm going to have a dredger and I'm going to have some gates, and that'll do for now. I'll come back and add some stuff to this as I think about it. So dredger, if that was hired per hour, it would be a work resource. If it's being used up, it could be set to material, but I'm going to set that to material anyhow. Same with this one, gates, they're material. Now for the people, you've got the option there of putting what their job type is there. So I'm going to say Bob is a manager, and Bill, he can be tech, so can Ben, and could be a supervisor. They're all 100% allocated to the project, and the standard rate of pay, let's say they're all on £10 and they get £15 if they do overtime. Not a lot of money, but unlucky for them. And then I'm just going to highlight those two and pull that down. Cost per use, I'm going to leave blank. Dredger, let's say that is a cost per use. Every time we use the dredger, let's say it's going to cost us £2,000. So if we allocate the dredger to a task, it's going to cost us a fixed cost of £2,000. The gates are going to be, every time you allocate a gate, they're going to be £500. So one gate is £500, two gates is £1,000. The calendar, these people are using as a standard calendar, which I'll have a look at in a second, but that's already defaulting to the standard. You can change that and allocate whichever calendar you like. So we've got our list. Now we need to go back to our Gantt chart and we allocate people to task. Now, like I've already said, you can drop this list down and tick these boxes, but I like to do it through the resource tab and assign resources, because this floats and it gives you a bit more of a visual indicator of what you're doing. So map flood area, let's say that's going to be Anne. Assign Anne. She doesn't need anything. So design gates is going to be Ben. Build gates, it's going to be Bill. And install gates, it's going to be Bill and Ben. And test gates, it's going to be Ben. Now obviously building the gates, there we want a gate. So let's say we need 5 gates. You just change that to 5. 5 gates gives you that cost, £500 per gate. So that's that set done. Source a dredger. Let's say Bob's doing that. Dredge river. Bob is doing it, or being in charge of it. He needs a dredger. So that's that one done. Next one, source contractors. And can do this one. Now this might cause a bit of a problem. Anne, no, she's okay. Nothing went red. I was looking for an over-allocated resource there, but it's okay. Start banking. Let's say Bob can do that. Okay, we've got a problem with Bob, so let's take him off. Let's see if Ben can do it. No, okay, we're going to sort this out in a minute. I'll put Bob back on that. So let's say Bob has to do that. So bypass. Let's say Anne is going to do that. So she's gone over allocated as well. Source contractors, Anne can do that. And build bypass, Bob. So if I come back down, we've just got the audits to do. Let's say Anne is the manager, supervisor. She can do that and that, and then Bob can do that one. All right, so we've allocated the resources, but we've got problems. We've got red men everywhere, so that means that people are doubled up. And if you go onto the resource sheet, you'll see them red. So it's basically Bob and Anne that are over allocated. So we need to fix that. Now, one other way to do that is to get the computer. We could give these people overtime, but I don't want to do that. We can get the computer to do what's called resource leveling, which will look at these people, their availability, and look at these links and other things and decide which task to move to fix this. So the resource leveling feature is on the resource tab. So over here that you've got leveling options, and just to check that is a manual day by day, which is okay. And then I'm going to level resource. So if I level and first, see what happens. So that's moved everything across, but I can't actually see where it went to. So what I now need to do is go up to the view tab, other views, and then more views, because what I'm after is a leveling Gantt. Just apply that, because what that does, it shows you where the movement was. So these sort of khaki coloured markers is where Anne was doing that work, and that's where she's moved to. So it's actually only moved 1 or 2 tasks. That's moved as well. Now if I'm not happy with that, I could just go back to resource and clear leveling, and that will bring it back. So she's now over allocated again, and I can then do it for a different person, Bob. Or what I can do is, because there's multiple people, I'm just going to, for this example, just going to go level all. That didn't level all. Level all. So that's showing me now where there's been movement, and you have to then check the scheduling is still okay. You're still happy with the scheduling. And I'm just going to put the normal Gantt chart back on to have a quick look. So this has gone up quite a lot now to 42 days. But I'm happy that that's okay. Nothing looks drastic. Yeah, nothing's gone past the end date. Now, what I could have done before I got to that stage is put a constraint on this end date. If I double click on the commissioning date and say on the advanced tab, this is the default setting there. If I change that to must finish on the 18th of September, it comes up with this could, not would, could cause a scheduling conflict. I'm okay with that. Continue. Okay. And then you get a little marker in the corner there telling you that there's a constraint on. So now I've basically locked myself up a little bit, because if I try and push any of these tasks past that end date, should I say, it's going to cause a problem. Now when I'm looking at this, I'm looking at test gates there, that's not connected to anything. So I need to link something up to that test gates. Just loose, you can't have any loose tasks. Well, you can have them, but it's not good practice, because that would then, if this is delayed, that the funding is delayed, because at the minute the only thing I've got linked into that funding task is the map flood area. So test gates needs to be linked in, maybe with something else. I'll leave it like that for now. Okay, so we're happy with this. We can go back and have a look at the resources. We're happy with the resources. You can double click into these and just check that everything is okay. Change working time for anybody. You can go on to work weeks and details, and then select whichever day of the week they're working with. And if they don't work Fridays, you could click on Fridays and set that to a non-working day, or use the default. Okay. Exceptions are for holidays. So this is for Bob. This is Bob's calendar. So if he was on holiday, you would put that in there. Now, everybody has got their own calendar. Each person, each resource has got its own calendar, each person. But the project itself has a calendar. Now, the way it works is the resource calendars override the project calendar. So what you put in the project calendar is, this would be like bank holidays and factory shutdowns and things like that. And the work weeks would be coming out of options. These would be the settings in options that you'd have to change if these weren't what you wanted. But if your company shut down on a Friday, you would just delete it there and saying you don't work Friday. It's just a half a day. Just cancel that off. Cancel that off. Come back to my Gantt chart. So if we're okay with everything, nobody's over allocated, everything looks okay, we can now save what's called a baseline. So we go up to the project tab, which we're on, and you can save up to 11 baselines. And what a baseline is, it's basically a snapshot of your plan, what you think is going to happen, and then you can measure against that plan going forward. So I'm just going to click on that. There's the 11 baselines. First one's not got a number, and then I click OK. Now what that does is it is taken a snapshot. If I just change this table view, if I go to the View tab and change this table to the cost table, tables cost, you can see the baseline figures have been, if I just undo that twice, if I can get rid of that for a minute, put the cost table on. So normally the baseline figure is blank. As soon as you save a baseline, so project set baseline, it will put the figures that are current in the baseline column. So they're just the same at the moment. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to start updating the project, and then you can see how you go in actual against planned. So your baseline is your planned, actual. So if you're adding extra resources or it's costing more for the dredger or something like that, you will see the change there. Now you can also add resources that are called budget resources, like budget work, what you think the whole project's going to cost, and how many hours, man hours, you think it's going to be. So now to do that, you need to do it slightly different. So if I say external cost, just to give it a name, external cost as a resource, and then I just double click into that and I set it to budget. It's a budget resource and it's going to be cost. There you go. Now if I go back to the Gantt chart and I click on any of these tasks, go to the resource sheet, assign resource, you've got your budget external cost. It doesn't let me assign it to any task. If you're going to do a budget resource for cost or work, you have to have a summary task, which we have at the top. It's the first thing we did, flood defense, and you would assign it to that. So I assign it to that, and nothing's visual. The way you allocate the funds, you need to go to a different view. I'll just come out of this. A different view, in this case, it's going to be the task usage view. And you can see there, look, you've got external cost on that flood defense. Now we haven't got the budget cost column visible, so I need to right click, insert column, start typing budget, and then you want the budget cost field. And that is where you can put in the overall budget. So if I say the overall budget for this was £50,000, you type it in there, £50,000. If I go back to the Gantt chart, we're way under budget. Look, the total cost is only 9,700 if this is how it all pans out. If I right click there and insert budget cost, you can see it, it's visual, you can see it there. Now what you do is you start updating your tasks. Now to do that, we need to go onto a different Gantt chart. You don't have to do that. There's a few different ways of doing it. I could double click into a task and go into the general tab and start using this percentage complete and change these dates. Because we've done a baseline, it's taken a snapshot, so that's great. I could go up to the task tab and click on one of these percentage buttons. I could go to mark on track and click that, or update tasks and do it in here. This is a bit more information, so I can actually, there's a planned date. This is the actual date, so it might be slightly different. All of these are viable ways of doing it, but what I try to do, or try to teach my classes to do, is to go down this left hand side and go into the tracking Gantt. Now if you haven't got this bar on the left hand side, if you right click, I'll take mine off, you might just have this. If you right click and just tick view bar, it'll put it on for you. It's not as flexible as what it used to be. It used to just remember certain things, but now, as you can see, you can add your own views in there, and it can get quite cluttered. Plus any view you've been on, like that leveling Gantt, it remembers it and puts it in there. So you've got all these options at the top on the task, on the resource, they're all there. So whether you use this or not, it's totally up to you. It's more of a habit on my part. Anyhow, so tracking Gantt, this is the tracking Gantt, but I want the tracking table as well. So view, tables, tracking, lots of information here. You can see on the right hand side, you've got the percentage complete, and you've got the baseline marker underneath. Now what have we got here? Actual start, actual finish, all this sort of stuff. Now what I haven't got is what the planned start, what the baseline start date was. So I like to insert 3 columns. So I'm going to insert baseline, the start column, that's the planned start, and baseline insert column, baseline finish, and baseline duration. I like to see those 3 columns. It can get quite tight in on a laptop. If you've got a PC with a big screen, it's no bother at all. So now I can look at this and have an idea of what the actual time and duration were planned for this particular task or these series of tasks. And if I need to update these, I can just do that. Now, in my view, it's a lazy man's way to update a project plan by just going 100% complete. Because basically, if you say 100% complete, that means that everything went on time and on schedule and on cost. And the highly unlikely that is, and it's not an accurate way of running a project at all. So try and avoid doing 100% complete. Sometimes, like for milestones, that is easy enough to do. You can just put 100% complete, and then it will just fill in the information. So having said all that, I will do that for the milestone because that is a just yes, no sort of go, no go sort of task. As soon as I went 100% complete, it's put the actual start and finish dates in there for me, which is great. Now, if I just come back across a little bit so I can see what these things say and just move this over. You can delete columns if you don't want. I don't want that column there, so I'm just going to highlight it and delete it. Any of these columns that you're not bothered about, you can just delete it. But I just want to show you how this would work. So this is planned for 5 days. So there's actual duration. Let's say it took 10 days. So there's a cock up straight away. We've got now there's a conflict. It's hitting my constraint on the commission task. I'm going to allow that conflict because we're now going to have to move past that finish date. Let's just make sure that's, see, it's not come down a bit so I can see it. So it's on the 18th. See, it's done this. So what I would need to do is move that forward to the 28th. So I'll just go back in there and put that onto the 28th. In fact, what I'll do just for this example, just put it back as a default. Take that date out of there, so it's not got a constraint on at all. And then it moves forward. If that happened in real life, you would have to get in touch with the handover people and explain that there's been a delay or it took longer to map the floodplain than planned. So the finish date is going to have to move, which is very, very common, obviously. So we've done that. We've 100%ed that one. It's took 10 days. Now, design gates was a 2-day task. Let's say that took 3 days. And then it puts those in. Next one down, build gates. Let's say that was a 4-day task. It was due to start on the 10th, Monday the 10th, because it's no longer 3rd because it's following this task. You could maybe insert the link in there, but let's say, for argument's sake, that finished not on the 14th. Let's have a look. 14th of August. Let's say it finished on the 18th of August. I'm just showing you there that I'm putting the finish date in, and it still fills in the other dates, and it's still 100% complete. Now, install gates, that's a 2-day task. Let's say this took, it took 2 days, which puts it finished, but you reckon there's still 2 days left. So I've now gone into remaining duration. It puts that back to 50% and takes out that date, and then you can see the cost and everything is reflecting that. Now, if that got done in 2 days instead of 4 days or whatever, if I put that to 0, it does 100% complete. So you actually made some time up there. So instead of 4 days, it's just 2 days. Now, while all this is going on, what you need to be doing is producing reports. So if I go to the reports tab and go to dashboard and then burn down, you can see some preset reports that are already done by project. Go and pick a different one to that one. If I go down to cost overview, So you've got your cumulative costs, and if you come down, so you've got actual costs and baseline costs. Everything's looking okay there. That map, see, that's gone over its baseline cost. This isn't the best. So actual cost was 800, baseline cost was 400. So you've got a cost variance of 400 on that task, 240 on that task. Go back to reports. You can create your own reports, and where you do that is just go new report. I like to do my own reports. Call it Steve. Okay to that, and then you start building up. So I want a little graph, and what's this giving me? Whoops. This is giving me the hours remaining work, actual work, remaining work. Now what you've got down the right hand side is all the fields. Sometimes it takes a bit of time to get used to where all these things are. At the top you've got tasks and resources. So that's now the resources, look, but their actual work. Now they've got filter options at the bottom. So you've got resources, all the way down in different groups. If you put them in groups, you've got resource work. If I put that on, it filters just the people, which is good actually. I like that one, so I'll just keep that one like that. Then I'll get myself another little graph, and this time I'll display the tasks. So at the moment down there you've got all active tasks. It's not grouped by anything. You've got different groups, look, critical, non-critical. These are all sort of filters you can put on. Milestones, no milestones, and all no groups. That's everything. You've got level 1. If I put all subtasks, that's everything. If I put level 2, so level 1 is what it was on, so it looks okay. Level 1 does. So what I've got there, work and funds received. So let's have a look what else we can have. We've got actual work, remaining work, and work. And then you've got baseline. So baseline work, if I put that in there, and let's get rid of work, which was the initial thing, and remaining work. So you've got like your baseline, actual work against baseline. That's quite visual. You can see that, pretty simple. Now, last thing I'll do is do a little table. So a little table, come off the graph, table. So that gives you, let's move these graphs down a little bit. Bear in mind that this is updating live. As soon as you start making changes to your project plan, this will update, if I can pick it up. Now, if I change the level down the bottom there to level 1, you're seeing all that information, which is okay, but I don't want the start and finish dates in there, so let's come down, get rid of that, get rid of that, and then you can make this a little bit smaller and maybe move it somewhere else over there. You get the idea, I'm sure you do. So that's giving you completion status on tasks. Now, this is saved all the time, so if I go to report, it's going to be called Steve. If I pick a different one like resources, resource overview, that's the resource overview preset report. If I now want to see my report, go back to report, and either recent, it's in there, or custom, there's mine. And as you update this now, so if I go and update that dredge area to 100% complete, and then come back to this report, you'll see how that works. So if I go back to the tracking Gantt, so dredge area, let's just say it's having said not to do this, I am going to do it. It's 100% complete. So is that. If I then go back to reports, go to custom, Steve, it's 100% complete. And basically that is in a nutshell how Microsoft Project works from start to finish. What you have to make sure you do is that the task lists and the detail that you put in here is manageable. because as you can see on that tracking Gantt, you or your team has to update this, otherwise it's just a pointless exercise and you just use project as a planning tool. So you need to update this, and before you even get going, you need to make sure that this represents what actually goes on the ground. And I've just been reminded there, look, you see these milestones, these not milestones, these baseline markers. That's how far off baseline you've moved. You can save second baseline, third baseline throughout projects. If I go up to the project and set another baseline, you'll just drop the arrow down and pick another baseline, baseline 1. You only need to do that as if your project's moved off a baseline, or you've got this decision prior to the thing starting that you're going to do a baseline every month or whatever. You've only got 11, so you can't, if it's a long project, you can't do loads. But normally if there's a big change, you can do that. So I'll see if I can make a big change on this one. So what can I do? Let's say that this is meant to take 2 days. Let's say it took 20 days. That's a big change. And let's say that took 20 days. That's another big change. And then I'll save a third baseline just so you can see this. Set baseline, save baseline 2. Okay. Now if I pull this all the way back across so you can see this, there's your baselines. That's your movement. Now if I go to the format tab, you can look at individual baselines. So I'm looking at baseline 1 there. So if I take that off, click on baseline 2, or the second baseline, baseline 2, the third baseline, you can see that. If I take that off, I've got slippage where you can look at baseline 1, there's the slippage. Baseline 2, the second baseline, even though it says baseline 1, and baseline 2, which is further forward, wherever that is. Now there is a Gantt chart view that shows you all these baselines in one screen, so you can see how much off your plan you've gone. So if I just quickly show you that one before we finish. So it's in other views, more views, and it's called multiple baseline Gantt, that one, multiple baseline Gantt, apply. And then you get a very thin line, because it could be 11 baselines showing you where the movement has been. So there's quite a lot of tasks here, so you can see that this has moved quite a bit. If you look at the summary tasks, if I double click on, not that, so try and double click on the actual line. Yeah, so if I say bar text name, see which one that is. If I go to the right, not name. If I don't want name, actually I want the anyhow, but it doesn't matter. That blue one is the first baseline. If I can get it to point it, double click on it anyhow. Missed. That's it. So if I put on the right, baseline cost, that gives you the cost. So you could, if I double click on the red one, baseline cost on that one, same, and that's no baseline 1 cost, that should be, not baseline. The red one again. Baseline 1 cost, so you'll see the movement. So I can see the movement. So you can see the scheduling change, and if I did that on that one as well, you'd see what the end. So baseline 2 cost. Planned at 9.7, went to 10. It's gone to 12, but you're still well within your initial 50,000 budget, even though you've had quite a big slippage on this particular project. But that's all I want to talk about on this one, guys. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you on the next one.